Alright, hello everyone. Today we'll be looking at the numbers for Corp Hong Lu. This character is a full-on charge character, and I'll talk about why. First off, this character needs a lot of charge potency, and you get that by eating 10 charge count. This sinking part over here, treat it more as a bonus rather than something that enables him to do sinking shenanigans with an actual sinking team. The reason being is that this part over here is very slow to hit. You need a whopping 4 charge potency, which is 40 charge count eaten. You need to eat the charge count, which is very slow. You need to activate skill 2 4 times and make sure you eat 10 charge count every single time. So it's not going to be very fast. So by the time you get to maximum power of this sinking thing here, your sinking team by default would have already stacked the sinking by themselves to like very high levels. So this character is not really a sinking character, more of a character that is charged and will help to do sinking, just like Reindeer Ishmael. Reindeer Ishmael also has 4 sinking instances on it, but she doesn't really belong in the sinking team, right? She can't really do a lot of shenanigans with that skill tree. This thing here requires charge potency, and this character really needs a lot of charge support. Next, you also have the multiplier here. You need charge to get this massive 25% multiplier on all of your base attack skills, no matter which one is going to be. Right, moving on, skill 1, Energy Strike is going to be your weakest skill early game, because this gives you 2 charge count plus 1 for 3 charge count, and this only rolls up to an 11. Really not that great. It's really not that great. Next, you also have your skill 2. We'll talk about this last because this is not a way to gain charge count. We'll talk about concentration first. Just the charge count section. We'll talk about the multipliers over here later. Gain plus 7 charge count and also gain 3 charge count if you don't have any charge potency for a massive amount of 10 charge count. Very powerful stuff actually. Really good shit. And that will basically put you at 10, but next turn minus 1, so you go to 9, which means that you need to use another skill 1 or a defense skill to give you another 3 charge count. Yes, defense only gives you 3 charge count. You can activate this twice if you have a second action, otherwise this thing here is equivalent to skill 1 at 0 charge potency, and this thing is really meant to just be something to help force your envy resonance and nothing much else. Right, so now we talk about skill 2. Skill 2 is the way to spend. It is the only way to eat your 10 charge count every single time you pop this skill here. You can activate this early if you want, but the downsides of this activation here is quite horrible. When you read this for the first time, you think to yourself, wow, this is horrendous, I would not want to use this, because you gain 10 sinking, which is not great. If you get hit even once, that's gonna suck, and then you raise charge count to 10, that's great. But you also get indiscriminate, which means that you can hit allies. You get unfocused volley, which means that your coins will now spread and hit multiple targets, which includes your allies, and you get attack weight plus 1. So you're gonna spray this shit everywhere, which is very bad for you. Then you look at the condition to disable it. 5 charge potency, oh my god, that's 50 charge count eaten. That's 5 casts of Mind Whip, because there's no other way for this character to eat charge count except by using this skill here. There's not even an ego to do it. So this looks horrendous, but actually this is supposed to be your reward. Once you have full charge potency, now you have the ability to fire off this skill, and it becomes a spray skill still, but it has attack weight plus 1, and it also will get the damage multipliers over here, as well as over here, as well as over here. Right? So these are all the sources that become very easily obtainable once you have this 5 charge potency over here, because this helps the charge count gain, this helps the passives all become active. So this is supposed to be a reward. Now if you remove indiscriminate, this is now a W skill. You only need 6 charge count, because next turn it drops to 5. You activate this, you spray it everywhere, it hits multiple enemy parts, and it's going to be a bunch of multipliers for very good damage output. And you only need to use skill 1 one time, because it gives you 6 charge count in total once you are able to get 3 charge potency over here. So really good, but once again, you need a lot of charge potency. So yeah, that's the bad part about this character. It takes a long time to get to the real full power of this character, which is why this character once again is a potential character. Just like how I say W of this is also a potential character. If they release more charge characters with damage multipliers like this character, then that character's stonks will just keep rising and rising. They released the support character for this whole archetype way too early, in my opinion. Right now we're getting all of the good units that will benefit with a W Otis on their team, and the more that comes out, the more W this team is going to be. Haha, W. Right? 8 remaining charge count, you also consume 8 extra to to deal 40% damage. So this will help you to get this extra multiplier over here. So that means you want to probably get 18 charge count if you want to get the full power over here. But you also don't need to, because spraying this shit over here is already going to be good enough, because it raises your charge count to 10, and then you get the coin power, and that coin power is going to give you a 5, 10, 15, 20, 22 with 20% plus 25%. So you don't really need this part over here, but it's a good option where it helps you to dump excess, right? So let's say you have a bunch of characters give you a bunch of charge count, well, you get to dump extra. So you can do 18 for a 36 consumption, then you do another big dump when someone else feeds you more charge count, and you will basically be at full power with 3 uses of your skill 2. So having this excess dump over here is helpful if you can get major support, and that feeds you a lot of charge count for you to dump this extra over here. Right, so with all this stuff out of the way, let's talk about the actual stuff over here. This raise stagger threshold, you must remember, it has all of these damage multipliers on top of this humongous roll over here, where it rolls at 22 in a 4-coiner, so that's going to be a lot of damage. So the fact that you are also raising stagger threshold based on the damage that you are dealing, and you have all these multipliers, and including your W Otis multipliers maybe, that's going to be a lot of extra damage output. Really very, very amazing shit for this character. This skill 2 can become basically a skill 3 once we pump it up. Something like your Wild Hunt Heathcliff skill 2, where it does so much damage if the enemy got multiple parts or the enemy has a lot of waves. This is more specialized for single target, but it becomes equivalent to a skill 3. So once you hit late game, this is a 2 coins of skill 3 and also 1 coin of one skill of a skill 3. 2 skills and then 1 skill for a skill 3. Very, very powerful potential. That's the main keyword here. Alright, now skill 3 is another amazing skill, right? This skill does not consume any charge count, which is not great for stacking, but skill 2 will be all we need for charge count dumping. Skill 3 is very, very powerful because you can get 150% multiplier if you can get 30 skill power. And then you also have another 100% multiplier if you can get an additional 5 charge potency. So very big rewards for hitting big charge potencies, and this gives you a total of 250 plus your this one over here for another 275. Then you have your W Otis buff to give you another, I can't remember the buff, maybe it's 15% or 30%. That's another 300% on a freaking skill 3. Oh my god, full power is going to be absolutely insane, right? Let's not consider the absolute full power, but maybe let's consider the current ones we have right now, right? So this plus this plus this, 275%, right? That requires you to have 5 charge potency in order to hit that number. You're getting 2 base power and coin power per charge potency, and so the minimum requirement to get the absolute maximum 150% here is 4 charge potency. Once you have 4, you will get 8 in total. So 18 here plus 8, that's going to give you a 26 in total. Then you need 10 charge count to give you another 4 final power for a 30 final power, and 30 times 5 is going to give you the 150%. That's how you get the maximum number. So 4 charge potency to get your skill tree become a disgusting nuke, and then your charge count gain also becomes a 4 plus 3, 7, 7 plus 7, 14 charge count gain. So really, really good shit here with this one skill. Once you snowball, you will just keep snowballing. The sinking over here, even though it's amazing for the sinking team, as of now sinking just cannot fuel it. Alright, numbers finally talked about. This character very, very slow if you were to use him without support, and so he needs to be in a charge count team as of now. The sinking team cannot support it. We'll look at the sinking team first so I can show you my proof. First off, this team, as you can see, does not really generate any gluttony. This is a sample team where you have some of the butlers, maybe you want to use Lychee, maybe you don't want to use Lychee, and then also have Molar in case you want to use Molar, and then all these other Wuthering Heights butlers and whatnot. There's no other sinking characters that I can remember that are significant for this kind of team comp. And basically, we imagine our Corp Hong Lu is here. This character here may want to use his Dimension Shredder, which we will talk about in more detail later, because it gives you 5 charge count gain on use, and then the passive also gives you charge count when you hit negative statuses. So if you consider that the sinking team will maintain this, it's going to be very, very good. That's going to be a lot of free extra charge count, right? Well, look at the requirement. You need Gluttony. So this is just gone, because the only one in this team that generates it is the person on the bench. So this is quite horrendous, right? So cannot fit here. And this team, does it have any way to help feed charge count? There is one ego that I saw, which is this ADD Gregor ego. It applies Spark Discharge, which lets you get +1 charge count when you hit the opponent. So that's pretty good, right? But at the same time, this is a he ego. It is a he ego, and you want Solemn Lament Gregor. There's no way in hell you don't want Solemn Lament Gregor with a sinking team. So this is just massive L. Sinking team just cannot fund the ego requirement for this, and if you were to use this character without charge count support, he would take so many turns to get his skill 2 even popped once, unless you want to do 3 turns of skill 1 into skill 2, and then you get another +1 charge count gain on the skill 1, so you use the skill 1 twice, now you can pop the skill 2 and so on and so forth. It's just so long. At that point, you might as well just use another actually decent sinking character to apply the sinking for you. So it's just not viable right now. Maybe later on when proper egos are added, the sinking team can charge it well, then we can talk about coming back here and looking at this. Right now, this character is slated to just only belong in the charge count team because of the major supports that you can get. First off, Photo Electricity, which is the classic where you apply one of this really fast, and then you allies hit it, they have less than 5 minus charge count, they hit it, they gain 3 extra charge count. Very nice stuff. You have it on skill 2 and skill 3, very nice. And this character goes at 4 to 7 speed. 4 to 7 speed is actually going to be faster than your Hong Lu, who is at a 3 to 6 speed. So that is going to be more than likely going to be a faster character, and once you get some charge potency on him, you won't have to worry at all, because now he permanently gets haste and clash power. So that is going to be a very core support for the team comp. And you also have this ADD here, which does nothing for you. Yes, this ADD is completely worthless. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be your multi-crack. Multi-crack is a core support for the charge count team, because every time you kill something, you are going to feed your allies additional charge count, and that's going to be very helpful to help scale up the entire team comp. So this character is extremely important. Telepole Faust is not something that you actually want to use, because this thing here actually is meant to be a self-buff character, self-buff ego. You use this ego just because you want to gain charge count and because you want to get the extra damage per charge count and blah. Right? This is not going to be a support ego for your team. The next one, which is actually a support ego, is actually going to be Telepole Dawn. Because this thing, if you corrode it and you roll hits, you actually are able to give all of your allies 10 charge count. You can ignore all these other effects. They're like, whatever. If your allies get hit at that point, well, shit, man, that's gonna hurt like hell. But 10 charge count is a massive amount, and I would definitely do it if I were able to fish for this extra 10 charge count. Of course, you do nuke 20 sanity when you do it, so only 25 sanity. It's not the worst and not the best, but it's still a massive amount of charge count infusion into all of your allies. Corp Ryoshu, whenever you kill people, you give charge barriers to your allies, which is going to be very nice. Right? You can feed your allies additional stuff, and then when she defeats, she just gets this, well, whatever. She's more selfish than helpful, but the on-kill effect on the skill tree is going to be decent. Egos wise, there's no charge count egos on this character to help out the team. Massault actually has one of the better ones, not gonna lie, because Electric Screaming is a massive amount of 8 charge count to all allies on the field, and also feeds himself 12 charge count. And since this is an after attack, right, you can actually use Rhino, and Rhino gives him additional speed if he has a lot of charge, which means that he will more than likely activate Electric Screaming very early, and that will buff all of your allies, right? The extra haste plus this thing here, very solid combo for the charge count team later on. Absolutely a must-have in my opinion, and I think Rhino is the best holder for this kind of team comp here. So really good shit here for this Rhino character over here. I would actually recommend him for the team just because of that feeding ego, to feed all of your characters charge count to help them scale faster, right? And then after that, your WO, this character is just going to get better and better just because you can also do all this charge barrier shit to help feed allies, and also later on you can give load to all of your allies, which goes up to 30%. Wow, that means your final multiplier is going to be a 300% on that skill tree, and the more characters we get later on, the better it's going to be, and you can fund this ego here frankly quite well in this team comp, because Envy is very free, Pride is very free, Gloom is quite often, and Wrath, I think you get 1 or 2 sources of Wrath here. Okay, you get multiple from this guy over here, which is why he's basically a core requirement to activate this Dimension Shredder here. So the charge count team is going to be getting better in my opinion. I think the more IDs they release, the better this archetype is going to be, and the one that I'm looking forward to the most is this guy. I want the Rhino Gregor to come out already, because ADD Gregor is on this character here. There is currently no charge count character for Gregor at all, except this Rose Banner over here, but Rose Banner is more of a a weird one where he's just meant to be the holder of ADD. He applies ADD for the rupture count last time. Nowadays, we don't need him for that. Now, we can use ADD for the charge count team. So once I get my Rhino Gregor, which I absolutely am still believing in, this is going to be such a powerful buff for the entire team comp. I think at this point, you might as well run any Gregor just so you can activate the ADD Gregor, just cause you need to feed charge count to this kind of archetype. You need 1, 2, 3, and then 4 for the Envy, and then after that 5, and then a 6. I really am waiting for that Rhino Gregor just to fill up my 6 slot, and maybe in the future we might see Nikolai or other charge count egos to help buff up this kind of team comp. But yeah, really excited to see what's going on. For gluttony purposes, unfortunately, once again, right, you cannot feed this at all. So if you want to use a charge count team and you want to activate Dimension Shredder, you will need to run this guy here, which is also not really ideal. So Dimension Shredder, even though it is a charge count ego that helps to feed you a bunch of charge count, it most likely isn't something that's going to be easily fed into your party just because all of them don't have any gluttony generation at all. And I can't really figure out any other ways to convert the extra Gloom, Envy, and Pride into Gluttony resource as of now. If anyone knows Ego or something that could do it here, feel free to let me know, but I haven't researched that far. Right, so I think that's all the yapping I've done here. Basically, the charge count team doesn't even rely on Dimension Shredder. It's more reliant on purple resonance with this Rhino over here. And then later on, you want to definitely use the ADD Gregor over here. Just use like a Fire Fist or a Priest for now, just to make sure you have a decent unit, and then you're able to clash decently and then apply ADD so that all your teams can charge themselves very fast, so they can spam their skill trees and scale really fast. They're definitely trying to push the upper limits of the damage of the charge count characters. What I mean is that something like W Dawn, right? Since she has no multipliers, she's just not able to hit the super high damages of something like all of these other characters over here. So with the lack of those, they're just going to keep releasing characters who have insane damage scalings if you're able to give them a lot of charge count. So just hitting 20 or hitting 10 is not a requirement anymore. All you want to do now is just get massive amounts of charge count for the entire party, because once you hit the massive amounts of charge potency, you just win the game at that point. Your full power is ridiculous and you're going to do insane amounts of damage output. So I really can't wait to see what the final product is for the charge count team. We're definitely missing just one more Gregor ID. I don't know what it's going to be. Just give me any of the charge count Gregors. I don't care what it is. Just let me access ADD Gregor for the party and also let him benefit from it, and also be a charge count character who can accept the load buff onto him, and I'll be very happy already. Alright, so that's all of the theory crafting I have. Sorry for all the yaps, and sorry for the video being a bit late. I was not able to enter the game due to some bug where it was just keep downloading a patch. I don't know what the hell was that about. Alright, so that's it for this video, guys. If I miss anything, feel free to let me know, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Really high potential for this Reindeer Hong Lu, and I can't wait to see what else they have in store for us later on. Alright, thanks guys, bye bye.